If you follow my content for a while, you know that I absolutely love Arma. This sandbox game is just so freaking fun, and I cannot stop playing it. But one thing that Arma doesn't do very well, and this is not going to be much of a secret to anyone who's played it, is CQB. Most ops in Arma that you end up going on are long-range engagements from two sides of a valley, or maybe you'll fight over a city, but usually you just sort of hunker down on the outside, clear all the enemies from far away, and then mop up when you get in there. Pretty much the only time that you'll see actually good CQB in Arma is when somebody has decided to focus on it and is willing to spend the enormous amount of time to hand place individual units throughout different buildings, in windows, and in choke points. And honestly, that's pretty tedious, and a lot of people don't want to do that. But somebody has finally made a scenario that can provide nearly infinite close quarters ops that are both challenging and amazingly fun. Introducing Ground Breach. Okay, obviously this scenario is inspired by one of our favorite games, Ground Branch, but the author, who goes by Skull, has really captured a lot of what makes that game amazing and poured it directly into a completely customizable, quick to set up, and infinitely repeatable Arma scenario for 1 to 8 players. This scenario features randomized AOs, randomized enemy locations, dynamic and surprisingly in-depth enemy patrol patterns, customizable enemy factions, weather, arsenals with modded equipment, and civilian presence. There are even challenge modes like pistols only, iron sights only, etc., as well as a sort of wave mode called escalation that are built as extra options right into the easy to navigate menu system. Honestly, there's so much packed into this little unassuming scenario that I can't believe that it was posted in March of 2020 and I'm just now hearing about it. Really, I would expect it to be so much bigger than that. Now, everyone in my community at discord.gg/UselessFodder knows that I love good quality, repeatable, and randomized Arma scenarios like dynamic recon operations and escape. Custom Zeus ops are great, and long-term campaigns like Liberation and Anastasia are always fun, but sometimes I just want to be able to send a ping to our Arma role, hop onto the server, and get tactical with basically no planning. That's exactly what I did with Ground Branch. After just downloading the PBOs off Steam using Steam Workshop Downloader and FTPing up to the server, we were on mission in less than 5 minutes and watching Doreen get shot in the face at first contact. I love you, Doreen. Ground Breach is available on pretty much all the official and C DLC maps, and currently supports a bunch of Arma 2035 official OP4 and Green 4 units like Bandits, CSAT, and FIA. I've reached out to Skull to request permission to port this amazing scenario to some modded maps like Lithium and Pulau, and maybe get some Cup or RHS enemy types, but I'll have to follow up on that on a later video since he hasn't answered me yet. Skull, call me. Now let's talk about what makes this scenario so good. First, the map is quick to set up and execute ops on in a hurry. In less time than it'll take your teammates to play Tactical Barbie, you'll have a full CQB op generated and ready to go. You can even cycle through locations if you don't like the one chosen by pressing delete. It seems like most of the maps have about 30 to 50 locations, so there's plenty of variance for your pleasure. I also love the way that enemies act in this scenario. I'm not sure what's going on under the hood, but I find the patrol paths to be fairly unpredictable, but also make sense. And there is a nice mixture of enemies that both rush and stay put once the shooting starts, so the situation is fairly dynamic and requires good teamwork to keep everyone alive. The variety of options that already exist in the map is a huge bonus too. There are a bunch of challenge modes and a multi-round wave mode that you can play if you get tired of kicking in doors over and over. The different enemy types and huge variance in possible troop numbers obviously give a different experience too, which is a nice way to expand replayability. Lastly, the whole presentation is nice and just works. After years of twiddling around inside overly complicated Arma scenarios, it's so refreshing to just load a map with a few friends, drop into a quick op, and feel like you've completed a whole mission in 5 to 20 minutes. I'm a huge fan of dynamic recon ops for the same reason, but this is even quicker and tighter than that. This scenario really fills a much needed niche in the randomized ops category. Of course, the scenario isn't perfect. There's some improvements that I would like to see that would make Ground Breach even better. I'd like to see Skull integrate something like DRO's system for automatically pulling all of the factions from mods that the server has loaded. Especially with mods like RHS, Cup, and Community Factions Project, it would really expand the immersion to be able to take on more than just the default Arma factions. There's a little notice at the bottom of the screen for the number of enemies remaining as you play. This is a direct copy of the system Ground Branch uses for Terrorist Hunt, but I'd like to have the option to disable it entirely, or maybe have it update the number on the map or within the intel brief section, just somewhere out of the way, especially for the helpful but slightly annoying notice of the direction of that final enemy when you're just down to the last little bit. An expanded AO selection tool, allowing players to click on the map to select both the enemy location in addition to your own spawn, would also be pretty amazing. This would obviously add a lot of complexity to the spawning system on the back end, but how cool would it be to look around Kavala and then be like, yep, I want to attack that compound. Lastly, adding in additional objectives such as freeing hostages or eliminating an HVT would also be super fun. This of course would take the scenario farther away from the ground branch thunt source material, but it would also spice up the encounters and force additional decisions on the part of the team to increase the CQB experience just that little bit more. All in all though, I love this scenario and I'm actually really excited to see it ported to more maps and get more enemy factions in the mix. This really could be the go-to nightly op for a lot of Arma communities, especially ones that can only field a small number of players on a regular basis. In my opinion, Ground Breach deserves a spot alongside Dynamic Recon Ops and Escape on every server, and I really hope this video convinces you to try it. If it did, make sure to drop a thumbs up below, but if you want to actually see the op in action without me talking over it, then you need to watch this video right here, where we do a variety of raids on several Ground Breach maps. Thanks, and I'll see you over there.